right now. Okay, you guys are live. Good luck. Give me a second. Give me a second.
situation when they are in their survival state, if you can think of it like that. We are going to want to teach those skills when we know that our students are in that executive state. They are ready to learn. Right. So if you think of it like that too, and what connects, like you said, Mrs. Bussey, what connects all three states is the connection, which is huge, and the relationships. And I know that I'm willing to work the hardest I can for people and teachers and staff and parents that I have a connection with, and the students will do anything for those when they have that connection. So that's how huge this is.
Well, ladies, with that said, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, okay? Ms. Bussey, Ms. Artino, can you give some real life examples without using names, without using schools or anything like that? Can you give some real life examples of this being used in the schools? Conscious discipline. Can you give some real life examples so that the parents at home can kind of like see, because more of this is technical, which is great. But, me, I'm a parent also, and I'm like, okay, well, I get the science behind it, and it sounds great, but how does that look in real life? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So give us let me
give an example, right? Okay. And so when we think about, let's say, from a younger age, a student may throw a tantrum. Heck, our teenagers might throw a tantrum too. They don't get their way. They mad. They storm off. I got one of those. Yeah. Right. You have one, Mr. Rouse, right? Yeah. So they might throw a tantrum. And so they're really either functioning in their emotional or their survival state at that particular time. Often what happens as parents, we then also become in our emotional state, and we just react, right? Go to your room, do what I say, we're yelling, because we too are now in that emotional state, and we're trying to work through it. We're frustrated or we're irritated. Remember when I was talking about those states, part of those emotions is frustration and irritation, right? And so that's happening. What we really want to do, and it's difficult and it takes practice and you really have to get to that conscious state, is that when that tantrum comes or that teenager might be, mouthing back, whatever the case may be, that we pause. Because right now, if we don't, we're going to those emotional feelings, and that's how we're going to respond. But if we pause and we really take a step back and try to figure out, and it's hard because you're in the moment and you're saying, do what I said. How many times have we heard that, right? We have to take a step and we have to take a pause to really figure out why that behavior is occurring. Yeah. So then we can get to our executive state to make the best decision on how to respond to that particular behavior, and also use it then as a teachable moment. Ms. Artino, what are you going to share?
I was going to say that breathing is so important that we're discussing. That is what we are teaching our students. It's not just a breath. It's a deep breath, and it is allowing all of that oxygen to get to our brain and to give us moments where we can stop, shut off that CD-ROM that's going to punish, and look at the behavior as a time when a student may not have a skill. They're skillless in that situation. Not that they are doing this to me. So it's really a transformation, Mrs. Bussey, of the way that we are looking at our discipline. We're becoming more consciously aware of that this child is not doing this behavior to me. Mm-hmm. I need to stop, breathe, and know this behavior is not directed at me. They're not mad at me. It is that they are lacking that skill. And when I can get them to take the deep breathing and move back up the brain to the connectedness and can get them to that prefrontal lobe, then that's where the problem solving occurs. And we can make some changes, especially for when this happens again. And the hardest part about the prefrontal lobe is that that is not developed until a later age. So you often feel like you're going around in circles with this. And I believe it is in their 20s that prefrontal lobe is developed. So for those people out there that have teenagers, just a little bit longer, for it to develop. And that's why we're here today.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you guys are letting the parents know and letting everybody, the grown-ups know, that this is for us also. This is not just for the child. This is for us. How do we react to these situations? So conscious discipline is showing us a way to be able to handle and deal with it, because parents are struggling. Let's just be real about it. I mean, COVID has done a number on us, and the world is different. It's the computer age. Everything comes fast. I remember when I had to find out something, I go to the library. Well, I got a device I can look at now and ask it a question, and it'll answer it for me. You know what I mean? So everything goes so fast, man. So with that said, ladies, you're doing a great job. With that said, so, and I think you kind of answered this, but let's maybe go a little bit more in depth in it. I know, Ms. Artino, you're dealing with the younger ones, and Ms. Bussey, you're kind of dealing with everybody. But how is conscious discipline being used in our SEL schools?
So what we do, the core values of conscious discipline, we can see in our, we have the 7 skills, and I know that was just up, there we go. We look at creating the school family from the inside out. We have 7 skills that are this page here is a nutshell that's going to help parents understand the skills that we are looking at, and taking our children through the process that also have different structures within them. So, for example, composure is where we are going to start in October and November in our buildings, and we are going to look at the structure of composure, being the person you want others to become. And no one can make you angry without your permission, which is a huge thing. I think even we as adults need to know and learn. We then are going to move into assertiveness and encouragement, choices, and then scroll up just a little bit. We're going to move into positive intent, and the last one, if we can go up a little bit, are consequences. And what we're trying to do is the goal is that we are helping children to learn from their mistakes. We have to understand and have the power of intent that knows what I am seeing and what I'm doing, I get more out of, which is also the power of attention. But what we're trying to do is we want children to have choices. We don't want to punish. We want to come up with some other kinds of teachable moments. And I think a lot of times punishment was what was used as when we were children. So we can help children come along in the process without having to have those harsh consequences.
Yeah.
And would you agree with that, Mrs. Bussey? These are our 7 skills that are connected to the brain states. And knowing ourselves and being able to identify in ourselves when we need to breathe, and using these skills to get us through the process of helping our children.
And I think, when we talk about and we break these skills down, and we're going to spend time over this school year really talking about, what is composure, as Ms. Artino spoke to, being the person that you want others to become. It's about the power of perception. And she hit right on it, that no one can make you angry without your permission. You really have control over that. And that skill, and although it is star and it's smile, take a deep breath and relax, as adults, that's important too. How many times have you been in situations where you know that you're about to lose your composure, and you just kind of chuckle and kind of rethink and take a deep breath so that you can respond? What you're doing is really self-regulating yourself, right? So that you're bringing yourself back to that executive state that we were speaking about. When we think about assertiveness, right, we're talking about setting limits, but doing that respectfully. That's that power of attention. What you focus on is what you will get more of, right? As it speaks to the screen, right? We're talking about visuals and schedules in our schools. That's what that looks like. We're talking about school family structures. And I think that's really important for our students to understand. We want and we encourage that assertiveness, but in a respectful manner. We want kids to have voices. We want parents to be involved, but we have to continue to set those limits and be respectful. Because if we're not, what state are we jumping back into? Our emotional or our survival. And we're not going to get the end result that we want unless we are really functioning in that executive state. Then we go to that encouragement, Miss Artino and Mr. Powers, really building school family. So Miss Artino, what would that look like to you when we're talking about that power of unity and building a school family? I know you've done a lot of work around that.
So from day one, building the school family is not only within the classroom, but it's within the school itself. It's seeing everybody as part of the family. The family is the most close extension you have beyond your real family at home. So the school family is the closest next thing to building those bonds and connections together that we feel when we go to school. That this is our school family. And starting at the younger grades specifically, there are daily songs. There are connection routines. There are things that we do every day that connect us. And moving on through the upper grades, the school family, when we call it a family, it is even in the words itself, promoting a closeness, a togetherness. And it's encouraging us that we've got this. And that we can work together in a positive way. And the big word I heard before, Mrs. Bussey, was self-regulation. Mm-hmm. And so many times, I think that we run as parents, and I have done this myself. We want to sometimes save. We want to save our children. But it's so important that they are learning these skills, these self-regulation skills. And that is our goal of conscious discipline, to teach them these self-regulation skills when they are younger, so that they will move along and continue the self-regulating into the older grades where they are capable of doing that themselves and promoting themselves in the world and go out into our work world with these skills.
Mm-hmm. You hit on something, and Mr. Prowse, I'll let you chime in. When you talked about, saving, and this kind of goes into even connecting that conscious discipline. I know Mr. Powerson asked about with home, right? You talked about saving, and I'm guilty, right? I as my children, and I'm admitting this on live TV, right? My children will say, "Mom, you are a helicopter mom," right? And I have to work real hard at not trying to save, right? And I have to be really intentional in that. And that's hard for parents.
Yeah.
Because naturally, we want to protect, we want to save, we don't want our kids to have certain experiences. But the reality is the only way that they're going to learn how to navigate is to have some of those experiences. Yep. And that is a tough thing to do, because naturally our instincts tell us to save, right? But we do have to find ways to kind of just step back, not to the detriment of children or our children, but allow them to have some of these experiences so that they can develop these 7 skills that we're talking about. Mr. Powers, I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, no, that's okay. I was just going to piggyback off of what Ms. Artino and you said about the family aspect. I'm new to the district, so something as small as having the logo, the ARC logo in every school in the district, that's big. And I want to take it a step further and say, not just in the school, but you want it in the community as well. Because once the community starts to, because the heart of the community is the schools. I mean, let's just be real about that. So with that said, if the community is saying the same things that's being said in the schools, I mean, that is something so big and huge. And I think that's the route we're taking with conscious discipline. So I think that is awesome. I also wanted to say too, and Ms. Bussey, you kind of hit on this a little bit. Conscious discipline is amazing, but it does not take away from consequences. So I guess my next question would be for both you ladies is, can you kind of define that line? I know it's a fine line there because you do want to correct the behavior, but at the same time, we don't want people to believe that this is what we do and there's no consequences anymore. That makes sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of speak on that. Anybody?
Sure. Go ahead, Ms. Artino. Sorry.
I was going to get back to the point of it's conscious discipline for those of us that are administrators and teachers in the building. It goes back to that transformational change where we, and for parents as well, that we go back to our CD-ROMs that tell us punishing is the way that we learn. And to consciously learn that we can teach students and our children we can teach them these life lessons, and we can teach them how to remember that field trip slip, and we can teach them in positive ways that don't have to be consequences. Now, there are some times when, again, there's our word, safety. There are times when we have to do what needs to be done to keep all of the students in the building safe.
Right.
And those are times where we need to do that. But even so, our principals are the safekeepers of the building. They need to keep everybody safe. And our teachers in the building are safekeepers of the classroom. And so what happens is we need to work together to keep our buildings, our communities, our families safe. And when there is time when a consequence is warranted to keep everybody safe, we can do that. But all of the other things that occur that are much less minor are those that we can help bring our children around to that self-regulation and problem solving together to get them from the survival state to the prefrontal lobe, that we can have these teachable moments that doesn't have to be a result of punishment.
Right. And when you even think about like consequence, right? If our students are not really in their executive state, that prefrontal of the brain, and they're not functioning there, they're not really going to be able to receive the consequence, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like our goal is, because it's kind of like, and I shared this example earlier today in talking with some staff, as a building principal, which I was, for many, many years, if I'm arguing back and forth with a 5 or 6 year old, right? I mean, really think about that, right? 5 or 6, right? They're in their emotional state or their survival state. I'm in my emotional state. Nothing really good is going to come from that, right? There's no win. Actually, the 5 or 6 year old is probably winning that situation, right? And I'm not in the right mind necessarily to even be able to provide that consequence. And so conscious discipline is not a means of getting away from consequences. And in the book, Conscious Discipline, there's a whole section that deals with consequences and what that looks like. So this is not about not holding students accountable at home, not holding your children accountable, because we need accountability. They're going out into the real world and they're going to be held accountable.
Right.
We need to teach them some skills to help them manage. So when those consequences do arise, that they're able to navigate those types of things.
Well said. Well said. Well, listen, I am going to throw this last question out at you. And you guys kind of, I think you hit on it already a little bit, Ms. Bussey, but how can parents, how can parents connect conscious discipline to home? Anybody?
So actually, I was presenting also in our elementaries this afternoon, and I can tell you that the teachers were very excited to hear about these conversations that we're having with parents like tonight, and that we're opening the door to teaching our parents what we're doing, so that the parents will know, the parents can follow up at home, and they could be using many of the skills that we're teaching at school. So I just wanted all the parents out there, as well as Mrs. Bussey, to know that our relationship is so vital to the process of the parents and the teachers and the students together, that I feel that is even half of the battle of understanding what needs to be done and sharing with the parents what we're doing, so that we can be doing a lot of the same things together to help our help our children. And I believe that answered your question, Mr. Powers.
Yeah, and I think it's important for our parents to know that within the FACE newsletter that I put out monthly, we'll be talking about those themes. And so the next month we'll have some tips about composure. And we'll continue to have these conversations, because composure is where we're starting in our schools. Yes. In the month of October. And so there's that alignment, there's that district alignment that is occurring to support our students, our staff, but also our parents. So please stay tuned as we work through this. It's important that we are using the same kind of vocabulary. And so that's part of that connection for our parents. And to help them connect that what we're doing in school is also strategies that you can also use at home in your daily life. As I mentioned before, or maybe I didn't share with this group, but I shared it with some others. I often use the skills and the strategies that I've learned from conscious discipline in my own personal life. I have children as well, and it has helped me to kind of self-regulate myself as well when there might be conflict, and me to shift from my emotional state to get to the executive state and really figure out what exactly are my children saying to me. All behavior is a form of communication. All behavior is a form of communication, whether it's adult behavior or children behavior. It's still a form of communication. And so our goal is to help bring that connection from school to home, home to school, and really understand that this is a partnership. And I'll go back and I'll say this final thought. It takes me back to what Ms. Artino said when she first was sharing, that we're all in this together. And in SEL, we truly mean that. We truly mean that we are all in this together. It takes a village. It takes a community. But we're all in this together. And I know we have expectations. We have the SEL way. And we want what's best for children. And we want what's best for adults.
And in closing, I was just going to say, if there's parents out there that want a little bit of homework, what you can practice just until we see you next time, if you like, is to practice breathing, practice taking a deep breath, and see if that helps when you are faced with a behavior, which is a stimulus, and taking a breath and thinking about the brain states that we talked about and what state you're in. And one last acronym is, of course, Q-tip, which I try and remember, which means quit taking it personally.
Yeah.
Their behavior is not what they are doing to you. And if you can start to transform yourself to think that way, and you think of that they are lacking whatever skill it is that is needed, then that may just happen and help right out of the gate until we see you next time.
And ladies, we got about 2 minutes left, okay? So I just want to throw this out and you can kind of speak on it real quick. I know you guys got things you got to do. Time. Is this going to happen overnight?
Oh, no.
And I think that's the one thing that we have to let parents know, have to let teachers know, anybody that's watching is like, you're going to make mistakes. It's not going to happen overnight. That's why we're in this together. And just know you have support. So if you want to speak on that real quick, you got about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Sure. So yes, it definitely isn't something that's going to happen overnight. For me, I look at conscious discipline as a journey, right? And we're going to have bumps along that journey, right? But I never lose sight that we really are in this together. And if we are connecting, and that's real important to me, that piece of connection, and that we don't like jump ship when something's not working, right? We got to stay the course, and kind of see this through to be able to build, as I spoke to in the very beginning, that resilience.
And I was just going to say that I know we've given a lot of information tonight. And I know you might be thinking, well, wait, what did she say about something? If you want to further explore, you can go to consciousdiscipline.com. You can see the brain states. You can see more about the 7 skills. And we're going to be promoting more for you. But if you were excited tonight, you want to see more, you can go on the website yourself and look around a little bit and see some examples. We're going to be giving you a lot more of information, but I just thought that might be a nice idea if you're excited by this. And I know we have parents that I have met that have found conscious discipline themselves on their own. And we're so happy that we are, making this our framework in the schools. So again, these behaviors didn't start overnight. They're not going to be solved overnight. But again, we can handle them together, and we can come together and have these conversations through our workshops and know that everybody is working toward the same goal. Our parents, our teachers, our students, and we're all working to better our children and have these relationships together in a partnership, like you said. So I look forward to that continued relationship.
Well, ladies, I am honored. Thank you for allowing me to be the moderator of this incredible program. I know parents are going to have a lot of great information to go back and check out. I know this is going to be taped, so, if you get a chance to pull it up and take a look at it and go through it piece by piece, that'd be amazing. Ms. Bussey, Ms. Artino, you have any last words you'd like to say before we sign out?
So I would just like to thank both of you for joining me this evening to talk about conscious discipline, something that's really dear to my heart, but more importantly, the way that we kind of conduct and do our business here in South Lyndhurst School District. So I want to just take this opportunity to thank both of you for joining me this evening. It is much appreciated. To our parents that are watching, thank you. Thank you for taking time away from your daily things that you have been doing to join us this evening as well. And we wish everyone well this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.